So welcome back to the Free From Festival, our festive event. And now we've got Christine Bailey, who is an amazing chef and nutritionist and author. And she's here to talk about keeping healthy over the festive season, supporting your immune system and eating well in a period of the year when often people are just eating starch and chocolate and wanting to cozy up and just comfort themselves. Well, you can comfort yourself with healthy food. You can eat delicious things and be well too. And I'm really excited to see what she's going to make, which is chocolate truffles and some red cabbage, which sounds delicious, but also she's going to talk to us and help us to get inspired about being healthy. So hello, Christine.
Hi, hello everyone. It's really nice to be back here. It doesn't actually seem that long since we did the previous Free From Festival, and now it's Christmas, or it's pretty close to Christmas. We've already had Stir Up Sunday, and so I think, you know, a lot of people now are really starting to think about who they might be having to come with them. Have they got any allergies? How are we going to cater? How are we going to stop putting on all the pounds? You know, it's well known that, you know, the majority of people will put on up to 7 pounds, half a stone, over the whole of the festive season, not just for one day. And, you know, I get, like a lot of nutritionists do, inundated in the January for, you know, programs to help them lose weight. So I want to try and encourage you all that you can enjoy really good food that happens to be allergy free. And a lot of the things that I'm making, you only need little tweaks to make it suitable for people with allergies. And that's what's so good, because it then means that you don't feel that you're creating something completely different when you've got an allergy. And I'm celiac. I've got children, or teenagers rather, who are gluten-free and dairy-free. I'm well used to preparing food so that pretty much everything is suitable for everyone. And that's really what I like. I don't want to isolate people and make them feel that's your food and nothing else you can eat. But we can still obviously be healthy at the same time. And that's really what I want to show you today. So, shall I get started? One of my most favourite dishes, which I would quite happily eat without anything else, is my red cabbage and apple saute. And I make it so that it has a lovely little tang to it, with the addition of things like apple cider vinegar, loads of herbs, and a little bit of soy sauce as well. So I want to show you how to make that, and we can then talk about key nutrients, key foods to really be loading up on at the moment. So in my pan, and it's quite a big saute pan, and that's because even a small red cabbage, when you shred it up, and I cheat in the sense that I just shred it up into my food, in my food processor, just because I'm lazy. You know, it creates an awful lot, but it will cook down. Not quite like spinach does, but it will cook down. But you do need quite a shallow, large saute pan. Either standard olive oil or coconut oil or rapeseed oil, something that's fairly heat stable. We're not going to be going really high temperatures. It's a slow simmer, but I still like to use a good quality oil. So that's just warming up, and then into that I'm going to add my shredded red cabbage. Now this is actually a whole red cabbage, so to speed things up, I'm going to just probably use about half of that. Red cabbage, I think, you know, is pretty much ignored apart from the festive season, and yet from a nutritional point of view is absolutely packed full of vitamins and minerals, particularly things like the polyphenols. These are plant antioxidants, which we know now from the research are particularly beneficial at supporting our immune system and also our cells from getting damaged. And of course, it's very high in vitamin C. It also is a great source of the B vitamins to keep us energized and so on as well. But I do think that a lot of people ignore the red cabbage for white, and actually from a nutritional point of view, this has got more going for it. Plus it has a slightly sweeter taste, I think. So in your pan, you're just going to be sauteing this off so that it starts to gently ooze the juices out. This is a really nice recipe in the sense that you could prepare this quite a few days before Christmas Day, if you're having it on Christmas Day, and then reheat it. And in fact, I think the flavour develops over a few days. So it's probably a good one that if you're worried about getting loads of things done on Christmas Eve, you could do this, you know, a couple of days even before that. I've also often cooked it and then frozen it as well, and then just defrost it, and it's absolutely fine. So you still want to get a crunch out of this saute. So to that, I mean, red cabbage on its own is gorgeous, but I want to add a little bit of natural sweetness. And this is where I'm going to add a couple of red apples. Now, you could, if you wanted to, grate these. I actually like to just chop them. And the reason for that is because I want to have a little bit of extra texture. If I grate it, it sort of goes to a little bit of a mush. So I just want to give a little bit more crunch to my saute. And this provides some natural sweetness. The other thing is, again, when we're talking about, you know, overall immune health, keeping healthy, we tend to overlook some of the very basic fruit and veg. Apples are amazing in terms of digestive health. They're full of pectin, which is the soluble fibre. They're also, particularly some of the red ones, are good sources of these polyphenols and quercetin. And these have been studied quite widely now as supporting our friendly gut bacteria. And our gut bacteria play a key role in our immune response. And particularly for people who have allergies, where there may be some dysregulation going on there, and you want to keep your gut healthy. So fibre, plant fibre, which is, you know, often the soluble fibres like the pectins, pears also have pectins in as well, is a really easy, gentle way of supporting your gut microbiome without causing you bloating, and gas, which, you know, often some people will struggle with as well. So I've added just some chopped apple, and now I want to just create some more flavours here. So what I've got is some onion. You could use a little bit of shallot, and then I've also chopped up some garlic, ginger. Ginger for me really makes this dish, and then just a hint of chili. Now, if you like it a little bit spicier, then you can get just a few chili flakes and just scatter them. But be warned, chili flakes are actually really quite strong, so you don't necessarily want too much. Anti-inflammatory spices are an amazing way of just upping the game when it comes to your dishes. Garlic, ginger are probably two of the most easiest ones to be adding to a whole range of dishes. So I put those in, sauteed those just for a couple of minutes, just to really develop that flavour. So I've got that really nice tanginess of the ginger. And to add to that, I'm going to add just a little bit of lime juice. And then for the acidity, some apple cider vinegar. Now I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons. So it's going to have a little bit of a tang to it. And then to counteract that, this is gluten-free soy sauce, so tamari, which is often a lot stronger anyway than the standard soy sauce. And then if you do find that a little bit tangy, I tend to add just a touch of either something like xylitol, pinch of stevia, or something along those lines. You could use coconut sugar as well. That would work. You don't necessarily need anything, but I find that it really balances that sort of tangy sourness of the apple cider vinegar. And then at this point, all you're really going to do is allow it to simmer for about 5 minutes. Again, you don't want to overcook it. You don't want it to be too sloppy. It's going to have a nice crunch and a bite to it. So again, it's not actually one that requires much effort, really, to be honest. And this is also, I'll be honest, this is really nice cold. So if you are, you know, the sort of traditional Boxing Day type of leftovers, this would be perfect with, you know, cold meats or fish, as a cold salad as well. Brilliant way of also encouraging children to enjoy more veg, because it has that little sort of tang, slight sweetness to it. It's a really nice way of perhaps introducing them to a vegetable that maybe they haven't really tried before. This has to be one of my favourite dishes for Christmas, and I would quite happily eat the whole bowl full just on my own. Now, if you wanted to, you could make this as more of a main dish. And, you know, this is something that you could create now, you know, all the way up to Christmas Day. And what I would do is add some protein. So that could just be some flaked, hot smoked mackerel or trout or poached salmon. Or for a vegan option, I would actually be tempted to pan fry either some tempeh or some tofu. Just pan fry it separately in a pan with just a little bit of oil until they're golden, and then toss it in at the end. You could add some chickpeas instead, but obviously, you know, you need some additional protein there for a vegan dish. And then when you are ready to serve it, what I really like is herbs. And I like for this dish mint and also coriander as well. Mint really revives any dish as far as I'm concerned. And again, I think it's often overlooked. Spices and herbs are one of your best armoury when it comes to really upping the antioxidants in any dish. And so sprinkle those in over the end. And then I actually quite like a little bit of crunch. Now, traditionally, you know, apple dishes, Caesar salads, things like that would often have walnuts in. If you've got a nut allergy or you're not a fan of walnuts, then why not use just a few toasted seeds? Seeds, again, really rich in zinc, really good source of zinc and magnesium, both of which we're often lacking. And then just a little bit of sweetness and dry cranberries. I mean, this is the season to enjoy a little bit of cranberries. You could use fresh cranberries, but I think this just gives it a really lovely sweetness and texture to it. And that is my red cabbage saute. You'll notice that at this point, I haven't added any salt or pepper. I would do that right at the very end. I would taste it and then add some salt and pepper if I needed it. But you've got such a wealth of flavours with the spices and the herbs that you don't need an awful lot. Black pepper, yes, I would probably add a little bit of black pepper. Chris, I don't know if you just want to do a quick close-up. And are there any questions so far? And I'll show you the next recipe in it. So this is my apple saute with my chunks, sorry, my cabbage saute with my chunks of apple in, and a whole range of herbs, spices. And it's the apple cider vinegar that really brings this alive. And at this point, you could actually just cool it down, put it in the fridge. It will keep for a couple of days in the fridge. And then just reheat it when you want, or have it cold. So it's a really great versatile dish, high in fibre, high in antioxidants, good source of vitamin C. You've got extra B vitamins in there, magnesium, zinc. This is great for keeping yourself healthy over the festive season. And, you know, if you are someone who's very tempted to overdo the plate on Christmas Day, if you're filling up at least half of your plate with veggies, you're not going to have to be so worried. This is a great one to be having on Christmas Day. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of inspiration. I'm going to just move this out. Any questions? And I'll move this out and get ready for the next one.
Christine, I'm desperately trying to interrupt, but
oh, I'm sorry.
We can't both talk at the same time, unfortunately. So I just kept opening my mouth there for about the last 5 minutes. So it looks absolutely delicious. And someone was just asking, if you freeze it, does it survive in its same state? Will it go soft or?
Yeah, that's a good point. It does go slightly soft. What I would be tempted to do is, if you know, I really want to prepare this, but I'm actually going to, you know, and I'm going to serve it up, you know, in a month's time or whatever. I would probably just cook the cabbage with all the spices and the vinegar and everything else. Don't add the herbs. And I would probably almost not add the apple until you then reheat it, because the apple really, especially if you're going to grate it, will only need a couple of minutes. And so by the time you've warmed it up, you know, that apple, the flavours would have infused. So I'd be tempted to slightly undercook, do all the spices, all the red cabbage, then cool it down, freeze it, bring it up to room temperature, and then reheat it in the pan. You might need just a touch of oil, but there will be quite a lot of moisture there. And that way you'll still get all the benefits of pre-cooking without it being a little bit soft. But I mean, I cooked one a couple of weeks ago, stuck it in the freezer, reheated it, and it was actually fine. But that would be a way of just making sure that you've got some extra crunch to it.
And Marion is just asking us, will the recipes be available later?
Yes, they will. They will be on my website, which is christinebailey.co.uk, probably tomorrow, because we also have another demo tomorrow as well. So I'll probably wait until I've done all my cookery demos, and then they will go on the website. So yes, you will be able to access them.
Fantastic. And I think Margarita is also going to send out a link to the recipes. So you should have them, whether it's directly from Christine or whether Margarita posts that on Instagram or on the website, you'll be able to get hold of them. I'm very excited to make that. It looks absolutely delicious. And also, Alison was asking, can you dry your own cranberries? I would say yes, you can dry anything you want. You can either do them in the oven, or I have a dehydrator, which I even made my own Christmas decorations out of slices of grapefruit last year. So actually drying your own stuff can be incredible.
Yeah, and I used to do an awful lot in my dehydrator, and then it broke. But actually my oven goes really low. So if you don't have a dehydrator, just get your oven as low as it will go. You know, some of them will go down to about 60 degrees now. And then, you know, you can, whether it's your grapefruit slices or whatever, just, you know, put them on a tray. I would line it so that it doesn't then stick to the tray, depending on what you're using. If it's cranberries, it will probably be all right. And then just put the oven on, put them in, and just leave them and forget about them. I mean, you can do that with sort of kale crisp and things like that as well. But absolutely, and it's a great way of using up. Maybe you've bought some cranberries for something and you're not going to use them all. It's a fantastic way of, you know, just preparing your own fruit.
And you can avoid adding sugar or any preservatives, because you're not going to add those to your own things, are you? I
No,
also,
exactly.
your recipe would make an amazing sauerkraut. And so
Yes.
if anyone wants to know how to do that, it would literally just be weigh it all, add 2% salt, massage it, put it in a jar, squish it down, leave it for a week, and then you've got Christmas sauerkraut.
Yeah, and I think you'll find there's quite a few recipes on my website for making kimchi and sauerkraut, because I'm a massive fermenting person, so I love it. Again, you know, that's another one where you can prepare so far ahead, and you know, you need to, in a way, to get all the benefits. So this is the perfect time to be making some of your own pickles or your sauerkrauts or your kimchis. And if you're doing the lactobacillus fermentation, you know, you are going to be also providing some really healthy fiber-rich probiotic foods as well, which is, you know, great at this time of year, or any time of this year. Right. So I'm going to show you some chocolate truffles. My boys have been waiting for this demo to finish because then they want to eat them. But these are super, super easy. And again, a really good way of catering for people that might have, say, for example, dairy allergies. You know, a lot of the shop bought chocolates, you can get dairy-free chocolate, obviously, but a lot of them will have lots of added sugars in, dairy, or other sweeteners that you may not actually want. And I want to show you how easy it is to make your own. And the nice thing about making your own is, one, we do this traditionally every year. We make a whole range of homemade sweets and treats. And often we're doing it as well because we're giving them away as presents. And you can just get those lovely bags of cellophane or little boxes, and you could put these in, and these will keep for a couple of weeks. They won't last here for a couple of weeks, but they will keep here. And, you know, you can give them away as gifts. And, you know, that's just such a lovely thing to be doing, giving things away as presents that you've made yourself. So let me get started. So I've got a small pan, and what we're actually going to do is we're going to create the wet ingredients first, and then we're just going to literally blend everything together. And this is where, as well, you can vary what you add in, depending on what you've got or what your tastes are. It starts off with these, which is the cacao butter. Now, if you didn't have cacao butter, and you can get this everywhere, this is Chocolate Chips cacao butter, you can use a dairy-free chocolate, or if you don't have a dairy allergy, just a really good quality dark chocolate. You know, I like the sort of at least 75%. I tend to go slightly higher. But I'm going to use the cacao butter. And that's just going to melt in the pan. It's solid at room temperature, it just needs to melt. Now to that, while it is melting, I've got in here nut butter. Now you could use any nut butter you like. It could be peanut butter. I quite like cashew, but I'm also a real fan of tahini, which is sesame seed paste. One, it's incredibly nutritious, but it also has that lovely creamy moorish texture, and you know, it's a very good source of calcium, magnesium. So if you're dairy free, that's a really good way of just getting more in. But most nut butters are a good source of a lot of trace minerals, particularly things like the zinc, the magnesiums, and so on, which again a lot of people are low in. So that's going into the pan, and the reason for that is not that it needs to melt, but it's a really easy way of just combining it, because often, I mean, tahini tends to be a bit more liquid, but some of the nut butters are quite solid. You just need to break it up a bit. So I put that in at this time into the pan, and it's only going to take a couple of minutes for that cacao to melt. Now, sweetener. I tend not to use a lot of sweetener because I just don't think you need it. But obviously, if you're serving these to children and you don't want it too bitter, I've got in here a little bit of maple syrup. Now, you could use honey, you could use coconut syrup, yacon syrup you can get hold of as well. But it's just a small amount going in to provide the sweetness. And obviously, using maple syrup means that these are vegan as well. Now, then we're going to, once that's combined, so you can see they're all combined and the cacao is nicely just melted. So you could replace that cacao with chocolate, dark chocolate, if you wanted. Now we're going to use our food processor. Now, you don't have to actually use a food processor. You could just beat it all together in a bowl. But I'm actually going to add some dried cranberries, which I want to be slightly mushed up. So they're very, very fine. And this is just the easiest way of doing it. So I'm putting those, and you could use any dry fruit. It's just, you know, they are such a lovely seasonal thing to be adding. And then I've got my dry ingredients. Now, there's not a lot of dry ingredients, but this is where you can really tweak the flavors. So first thing is a couple of tablespoons of raw cacao powder. So that's going to give my chocolate flavor there. And then I like adding some superfoods. And I know they all sort of get a bit of a bad press. You know, everything's called a superfood these days. But these are just very concentrated foods in terms of the nutrients that they have. In here, I've got maca powder. Maca is a traditional Peruvian food. It almost looks a little bit like a turnip, and they eat it, you know, in stews and soups and so on. Here, we dry it and grind it up as a powder, and then we add it to things and smoothies and so on. It's a well-known, what we call an adrenal adaptogen. So it helps the body to adapt to the stress that it's under. I think most of us could probably do with maca at the moment. So I've got a tablespoon of maca, and then I really love the flavour of lucuma, which is another wonderful, it's actually a fruit, and it has a slight caramel citrusy flavour. So it really adds quite a lot, but it's also very good source of B vitamins, magnesium, and so on. Very concentrated source. I will often add other powders. I've been known to add various mushroom powders to this, because actually mushroom and chocolate go really well together. So things like lion's mane, chaga powders, which are really good for the immune system, and also lion's mane is very good for cognitive function as well. So you could just, you know, if you've got some of these lying around, you could just add whatever you've got. I then like just a little bit of vanilla extract, so that's going in as well. And then all you're going to do is put your wet ingredients into your food processor. This is where it will get just a little bit noisy, just for a minute. And I'm just going to process it up, and you'll get quite a wet chocolate mixture. Okay, so now this is where you then need a little bit of patience. So I'm going to show you what the mixture looks like, and then what it looks like when we actually chill it. So, Chris, I don't know if people will be able to see, but I'm going to just pull this up just to show you, because I want you to, yeah, I think if you just take the camera nearer, Chris, then we can have a little look. So I just want you to not worry that, so what your mixture will be, so you can see there's bits in there because I want to keep some of the texture of the dried fruit, but you can see it is very soft at the moment. So you're not going to roll it at this stage. You're going to actually be chilling it, and it's going to firm up. But this is the stage where you could now add some texture. So if you like a little bit of either crunch or chew and extra flavour, this is the time to do it. Now, my boys love ginger of any sort. They love ginger. Husband doesn't, but tough. This is going in, Chris, sorry, my husband. So this is just stem ginger. It's just one, because it's quite strong, that I've chopped up, and then I'm just going to chop that in to the mixture at this point. Now, sometimes as well, just to bring out the flavour of the chocolate, I add just a little bit of sea salt, not a lot, but that really makes quite a difference to the flavour. You'll be so surprised if you've never tried that before. And then at this point, you're going to just put this in a little bowl, and you're going to forget about it for a couple of hours, and it will firm up. Then, if you happen to have gloves like this, these are just, they look a bit like surgical gloves, but I use them when I'm making things like my fermented foods and beetroot dishes and things like that. So I'm going to glove up. Just because then it's much, much easier, so you don't get your hands completely covered. And then when it's firm, take it out of the fridge, and then you're going to take small bowlfuls, sort of, you know, walnut-sized balls, and then you're just literally going to roll them in your hands. And this is where it can get a little bit, you know, sticky, messy. Until you've got a nice ball, and then you can dust those in cacao, which is what I've done with these ones. You can also, if you wanted to, coat them in desiccated coconut or chopped nuts, but they will be reasonably firm, so they're not going to be sticky at that point. So I always find that it's just nicer just to really just coat them in a little bit of extra raw cacao. Remember that dark chocolate or cacao powder is actually really quite beneficial. It's got a lot of antioxidants in it. It's got a lot of magnesium in there. It's even got zinc in there as well, but particularly magnesium. It's really well known for being a really good stress reliever. And one of the reasons is it's a very good source of magnesium. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with enjoying some chocolate at Christmas or any time, as far as I'm concerned. And then once you've rolled these in a little bit of raw cacao, I generally keep them in the fridge. And, you know, if I'm serving them, rather than giving them as presents, I will probably take them out of the fridge for about half an hour, just so that they're a little bit softer when you bite into them and you get that really lovely truffly texture. So that's my chocolate truffles. Very, very simple. And loads of variations as well. Chris, do you want to do a quick close-up? And Naomi, I don't know if there's questions at all.
You put some ginger in and you said stem ginger. Do you mean
yes,
ginger in syrup? Yes,
that's right. Yeah, so it's the one that you get in jars. You could use the crystallized ginger, but it's already got the sugar all over it, and also it tends to be a lot firmer and drier. And so I prefer the stem ginger that you get in the glass jars, which yes does have a bit of syrup. And I'll tell you what I always do is never, 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 never throw that syrup away in that jar. Use it in cakes. You could drizzle a little bit into these truffles as well. It's, you know, I use it so much, just the actual syrup itself, because it has a wonderful, lovely ginger tang to it.
It's a very gingery demonstration. You love it. I mean, ginger's fantastic in the winter for getting your circulation going, isn't it? You know, good for all sorts of things. Really great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a well-known anti-inflammatory. I mean, it's been studied, you know, for thousands of years. You know, obviously, traditionally, a lot of people associate it with nausea and helping with sickness and so on. But actually, you know, one of the key benefits is it's very potently anti-inflammatory. And, you know, from that point of view, it's, you know, very useful when you're struggling with cough and colds, you've got mucus build-up, you know, you've got joint issues, etc., etc. You know, it's one of those spices that we just sort of almost take for granted. It's like, oh yeah, a bit of ginger, but actually it can be very, very therapeutic.
Yes, and also very different dried or fresh. You know, they've got a really different quality, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I love to do is I will often, because you can, if you go to Asian shops in particular, you can buy very cheaply big amounts of fresh turmeric and fresh ginger, both of which we know from the research is very potent anti-inflammatories. And what I do is I actually will grate those, often again using this just to save myself time, and then make a tincture by literally, you know, simmering it in some water and some juices and so on. And then I'll just decant that into bottles and either keep it in the fridge or out. And then you can just dilute that or warm it up in a pan. The recipe's on my website, so if people are interested in making their own sort of ginger turmeric tincture, that's actually on the website. That's an amazing way of supporting your health, very naturally and very cheaply as well.
Mm. And could you talk a little bit more about the adaptogens that you were adding? You were talking about your mushrooms. What is it about the mushrooms that you like? I know you said they go with chocolate, but what is it about mushrooms that makes them amazing adaptogens?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, there's a whole range of what we call medicinal mushrooms, you know, everything from lion's mane to reishi to cordyceps, and they all have their own particular properties. When it comes to the immune system, reishi is particularly good. Often you will buy these as mixtures anyway, so if you're not really sure about which one should I get, then I would say get a mixed powder of these medicinal mushrooms. But I often will use, for the immune system, I often use reishi. Reishi is well known for supporting a particular part of the immune system called the Th1. And that's very much involved in attacking viruses, bacteria. So it's a very easy way of naturally supporting NK killer cells and the Th1 part of your immune response, which is very much involved in fighting infections. And then you've got things like cordyceps and lion's mane. Lion's mane's been studied quite a lot for brain health, and I write a lot about it in my brain diet book, particularly because it seems to be useful for helping with what we call brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a bit like miracle grow for your brain cells. So it can actually stimulate the connections from one brain cell to another. I mean, it's quite amazing what the studies are now suggesting. And then cordyceps is particularly useful as a stress adaptogen. So when I mean adaptogen, I'm meaning something that helps your body to adapt to whatever it's under, whether that's physical stress, whether that's emotional stress. That's one of the main benefits of adaptogens. Another really good one, which you could add, but a lot of people take as a supplement, is ashwagandha. And again, ashwagandha has been very well studied, not only to help with stress, but also to facilitate a better sleep. And often the two things are very much combined. So there's a range of things that you could use very naturally to help improve your own resilience.
Fantastic. And certainly at a time like now, you really want to be adding anything you can to improve immune function, don't you? I was also thinking, if you were using something to help you get to sleep, that the caffeine in the chocolate you might be going one step forward and one step back. So could you make those truffles with carob powder, do you think?
Yeah, you could. I mean, carob has a very, very distinctive taste. I never really tell people that carob is a chocolate alternative because it doesn't taste like chocolate, and you're kidding yourself if you think it does. Yeah, no, I wasn't necessarily meaning that you should add ashwagandha to help you sleep and have a chocolate truffle. But, you know, ashwagandha you can get as a tincture in a powder. I'm just thinking of families listening that are thinking, well, how can I get my child to sleep better? You know, you can make it into a smoothie or a shake or something like that. But there's other things you could use, you know, Montessori cherries, cherry active, those sort of things could be very useful to help you sleep. But I do use carob. Carob has its own particular benefits as well. It's a very good source of fibre, for example, very good for the digestive tract. Just don't think it's really a chocolate alternative in terms of flavour. But it's a great one that is very, very useful in brownies, cakes, you know, treats like this.
Definitely. And yes, and how long do they keep?
Yeah, so again, I mentioned that it's more how long will they stop being eaten, because these will probably go today. You know, I've got teenager boys who are loving chocolate. They will for a couple of weeks easily, you know, perhaps a little bit longer. They will probably dry out. So I would tend to cover them in a little bit of cling or you know, just some plastic wrap, put them in the fridge. But, you know, again, you could be making these in the next couple of weeks to give as gifts, and they will last the Christmas season. You know, just put a little bit of a little tag saying store in the fridge, you know, and you've got a wonderful, you know, healthy treat to give someone as a gift this Christmas.
Brilliant. Well, that's the advantage of them not having dairy in, I guess, isn't it? Is that they really do keep for much longer. So how wonderful. I've always worried about that with giving cream truffles to people, saying to them, oh, you probably want to eat them in the next few days, you know, but actually at least you can give a gift and not worry you're going to poison someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, again, making your own just means that you know exactly what's in it. And if necessary, you can put all the ingredients on the label, particularly if you're, you know, you've got friends who do have allergies. But, you know, you can tweak the ingredients. So if you can't eat nuts, you could use tahini or another seed butter, for example. So there's ways of sort of tweaking them further as well. You know, to suit different allergies. But you're quite right, things with cream or milk in, you know, they're going to have quite a limited lifespan.
So Karen was just saying, do you take ashwagandha in the evening to help sleep, or is it something that you take as a kind of longer term to help sleep patterns?
Yeah, so ashwagandha, generally speaking, don't expect to just take it one day and suddenly fall off to sleep. It's much more subtle than that. It's induction, so it's helping the body to adapt. So some of the research trials have really been looking at sort of 3-4 weeks of regular use of something like ashwagandha. I generally say to people, take some in the morning and some in the evening. And it doesn't even have to be that close to bedtime, you know, a couple of hours before bed. And first thing in the morning. And the reason for that is what you really want is to just regulate your stress response. And normally, if our stress response is working well, so our cortisol is working well, it'll be nice and high in the morning, and then it will gradually calm down in a gentle curve. So it's nice and low at night. And by being low at night, it allows melatonin. If cortisol is very high at night and you're stressed and wired, you're blocking melatonin, you're not going to sleep. And if you do fall asleep, it's probably going to be very disrupted. So generally speaking, I would say if you're wanting to take something like ashwagandha, be thinking, you know, over the next month or so, I should notice a response. And that may be that you feel that you're handling stress better, you're not getting so anxious, you're not overthinking so much, and you find it easier to get to sleep.
Fantastic. And so you're back with us again tomorrow, Christine. So what are you making for us tomorrow?
Yes, I am. And tomorrow, 11 o'clock, so it's a little bit earlier, I'm going to show you how to make and I have a sort of tropical Christmas pudding. So I use some tropical dried fruits, and that's gluten-free and dairy-free. So if you've never made your own Christmas pudding, I want to dispel any myths. It's so super easy. It's so easy not to have gluten in there, which again, people, you know, think is difficult. It's not. And then I'm going to show you how to make gluten-free and dairy-free gingerbread cookies as well. So again, that's a really nice one. If you've got children and you want to get them involved in the kitchen, but they can't handle regular flour and things like that, then this would be a really good recipe for you. So that will be at 11 o'clock tomorrow.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really excited to hear that. I've never even thought of putting tropical fruits in a Christmas pudding. Yeah, I mean, why not? But it had never occurred to me. So I look forward to that. And absolutely delicious looking recipes, a fantastic amount of information. You're obviously packed with knowledge, and it's really lovely to have a chance to just touch in with you and get a little bit of it from you. Where can we get more information from you?
Yeah, that's very kind of you as well. So best place is christinebailey.co.uk. That's my website. I'm all over Instagram as well at Christine N. Bailey, but you'll see a wealth of blogs with lots of references, lots of research, and a whole wealth of recipes. They're all free, that you can access on my website as well. And these recipes will be on the website, so please don't worry. If you want to make them, you will be able to access the recipe.
We'll just give you a chance to put your feet up after all your demos and then get to the computer. Well, look, thank you so much. And it's been a real pleasure for me to meet you. We've tangentially passed each other many times over the years, and it's a real joy to actually see you in the flesh. So that's been great. And so did you have anything else that you wanted to tell us, or?
No. I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow, and I hope that the rest of the day's events go really well and everyone enjoys themselves.
Oh, and just to say, Catherine says, well done, hubby, for his filming skills. Round of applause for the support behind the throne.
He's always here helping.
It's great. My husband is also the tech support, and you know, we're very grateful that they allow us to shine in front of the camera. So I'm up at 2 o'clock, and I'm going to be demonstrating a coconut tart with a ganache filling, and answering any questions, gluten-free or otherwise. We're going to have a little break now, but I've really enjoyed this demo. Thank you so much, Christine. We'll see you back at 2 p.m.
Thank you.